Welcome to Game Over Montreal, where we'll try to give you a little bit more entertainment than whatever that game was. Oh my god, I feel bad, Mark, for the parents. Last year, the mom's trip, they lost 9-2 to Washington, who, by the way, were a terrible team last
Terrible.
year. And tonight, the Bruins, uh, I'm guessing the dads are going to stay for another game or two, but because it's a long road trip. But brutal,
Yeah,
absolutely brutal game. And I think
absolutely.
my biggest takeaway from that one is I don't think the Bruins were very good, and that's how bad the Habs were. I'm not saying like
Not
I
good enough
taught
to embarrass them like that. No.
no. I mean, here's where cause I got some pushback after the first period when I said the Bruins shot selection was terrible. And they're like, oh, look at the expected
It
goals.
was. It could
Listen,
have been
I
19-0 if they would have lifted it.
yes, all the shots were either fine angles from like the side or
or
along the ice.
yeah,
They made Jake Allen's life easy. Still let in two, and man, I'm the Bruins played better last Saturday. They did.
absolutely, absolutely. Not even close. It's not even remotely close. I will say, hey, I have a silver lining, and it's a good one. It's Juraj Slavkovsky was their best player today by far, like by leaps and bounds. Now that's like saying you're not the driest pebble of sand in the desert there and on these type of nights. But so there's that. It's not all a loss, right? It's
Of
all a loss.
course, it's mostly a loss, but yeah, I mean, at least Slapkovsky was doing good Slapkovsky things. All right, welcome to everyone who's here. I thought that there was porn bots in the chat because Kat has got some emojis going in her Kovacevic crew.
Oh
Two
yeah.
straight games for the scoring streak for Johnny Kovacevic. Love that for him. And then there's Jake the Snakes posting "Get creamy for Celebrini," which
Oh, what the
awful,
hell, man?
awful, but better than the stupid ones I've seen on Twitter so far. So
That's like hearing Justin Trudeau say moistly. Like that's just man, get creamy
yeah,
for Celebrini. Unless you're ordering your salad at Swiss Chalet, you should never ever use the term creamy. Okay, never, never.
the creamy coleslaw. That's clearly what the reference is to, and not anything else. How dare anyone insinuate
How
anything?
dare?
This is a
How dare
family
they?
show. All
How
right,
dare
with
you?
that, I got to tell everyone about our sponsor. So, we got to talk about Sign Up Expert. The NHL season is heating up, and there's never been a better time than to get in on the action, whether you're looking to hammer an Austin Matthews anytime goal or ride the puck line with the Montreal Canadiens, which I, again, will say, don't do. Our partners at Sign Up Expert want to make sure you're ready to sweat your bets with one of the best. Sign Up Expert is hooking up our listeners with one of the newest sports books available in Canada, Betano. Betano is home to some of the best odds when it comes to betting on the NHL and offers unique markets in virtual soccer and basketball. All you have to do to get started is scan that QR code on your screen right now, or click the link in the description of this video, or if you're listening on the podcast, in the description of the podcast as well, and place that first bet. If you thought the Vancouver Canucks have been the best surprise so far this season, wait until you try Betano. Don't walk, run to check out Betano today. Scan that QR code or hit the link in the description to get started and start sweating your bets with the best. Always remember to bet responsibly and within your means. Viewers must be 19 plus to sign up for Betano. All right, Mark, we're going to talk about Slavkovsky tonight. We're going to talk about the poor performance of the team, of course. We're going to talk about David Reinbacher and the situation over in Switzerland at the end. But first, I want to start a conversation. I was talking to a few Habs fans over the last week, and there's been some consternation over Marty St. Louis and whether like it's okay to criticize him because it seems like there's a huge contingent, and I'll defend Marty St. Louis a lot, right? But
Mhm.
a huge contingent of people who will brook no criticism of the coach because he's Marty St. Louis, he's the wonderkind, whatever. Uh, but frankly, tonight I think as much as the Canadians have been playing poorly, this was as much of a coaching loss as a player loss.
And I wrote the exact same thing in my recap. Hey, listen, I like the idea that St. Louis tried to switch the lines up, and that was like no offense to Josh Anderson, but it was long awaited. And I don't think the first line played as poorly as some are making it out to be, but
No,
um
the first line was the best line tonight at
by
even
far,
strength.
by far, yeah, absolutely. And just the Sean Monahan line just essentially imploded like a black hole in space, right? So we saw him make changes a little too late, and then he did adapt mid game, which is to me that's huge for St. Louis because we haven't seen that before. But I'm with you, Andrew. And I'll say one thing. I think the Habs are one of the least prepared teams in the NHL, and that falls on the coach. Now, Martin St. Louis is not an X's and O's guy. We know that, right? He's really a motivator. He's the guy that when you talk to him, you want to run through a brick wall for him. But we're seeing here where the motivation kind of runs up to talent and doesn't quite overcome it. So I don't think I'm as big of a Martin St. Louis fan as others, because I do see a lot of empty, like, trust me, I know about empty calories and I see a lot in what he does. But yeah, he has to do a better job preparing his team, because Andrew, let's look at it. The last, how many games have they played this year? Well, they've been bad in the first period, every one of those games. I feel like some of that is on the coach.
I don't know if it's not every one of those games. I don't think that's
there was like case. 3 that they weren't terrible, right?
I mean, listen, I think every criticism of St. Louis has to also come with the caveat that there is a huge year-over-year improvement as of the whole season so far, right?
Is there?
The last few games have been rough. Oh, wait, Mark.
But
last year they were below 40%. Last year they were below 40% in expected goals. Below 40%.
I think they were at like 42, but still is really, really bad.
No. They're like coming into this game, they were like 49 almost.
Which is not bad.
Yeah, they're
okay. They're down to 46 though, bud. So
yeah, but that's because of the Vegas game more than anything. The Vegas game was abysmal, right? The Vegas game knocked them down quite a bit.
I guess I don't see the improvements. That's my issue with St. Louis. I don't see any tangible improvements, right? Like for example, okay, so they're at 44. They were at 44% last year. They're at 46% this year. I mean,
that's huge, man. Considering the raw, yes, that is a massive improvement. To go from that far down to middle of the NHL tier, like like even like the
bottom, don't forget they're 5th worst in the NHL now. So like I think it's normalized a little bit though, Andrew. Like the good start, I think it's been eroded a lot, right?
Well, of course it has, because they've been playing like garbage lately. But I think we also have to remember that it's the same as if we were talking about them after the last Bruins game. That was kind of the best that they've been so far this season. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about them after 2 of the worst games they've played this season. So the numbers are going to be lower now. Mm-hmm. So it's not really fair to say like, this is what they are. Just like last week, the numbers would have been higher. Wouldn't have been fair to say this is what they are. We're still 18 games in.
Well, I pointed it out at the beginning that they were having a really high XGF, but it's just I wanted to see that kind of continue, right? I got a feeling, Andrew, I'll put a shiny nickel on it. They'll hit about the same area they hit last year. I get that sense.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think so. Now the big difference is that they're doing a much better job controlling high danger chances this year, and that's huge because last year it was such a horror show. So that might be the savior for their XGF.
It might be, but also remember this is also with no Doc, right? So that's why I think overall the season has been impressive compared to last year. They're not an impressive team, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about Marty St. Louis making bad decisions at times. Mm-hmm. For example, I have had it with Anderson in the top 6. It doesn't work. And listen, I understand he's gripping his stick too tight. Things aren't going well for him. He's getting his chances, but they're not going in. Time to put on your big boy pants and do your job. That's what I would say to Anderson. And you're getting shoved down the lineup. Like you're not contributing. Tonight, there were at least 8 different plays where I looked and saw Anderson making just flat out stupid plays. And a lot of guys were making stupid plays tonight. But Anderson just does not pay attention to where his teammates are. He in the defensive zone, absolutely brutal. You know, I'm on the HIO show every week with Stu Cowan and Rick Green, and one of the common criticisms of Slavkovsky is he loses board battles in the defensive zone a lot. I don't know if Josh Anderson's ever won one.
I don't know if he's ever gotten into one there. That's the that's the issue there. No, and I mean, as soon as you saw, it was towards the end of the game, but they removed Anderson and Gallagher from Dvorak, and they actually gave Dvorak to Slavkovsky and Ylönen, and which is weird because Monahan, I mean, it was one of his rare off nights, but he was bad tonight. But Dvorak's numbers surged immediately, right? So they went from like literally 0 expected goals to about, I don't know, what, 80% expected goals. So I hate to say it, but Anderson's just a huge drag, not just like emotionally, but on the actual output for all his teammates. And I feel like we're going to maybe get too critical, but like that was such a swing and a miss by Kent Hughes saying, I love this guy and he's so important to us. Man, you can't get emotional about these expiring assets. Like that's just not something. So anyways, all to say that right now we're probably dealing, I'd say, at the lowest point of the Habs rebuild, whereas there's not a lot going on. Caulfield's not scoring. St. Louis is having a hard time. Kent Hughes isn't getting much done. So this is like the bottom of the valley, Andrew. And you know what? We were going to go through this. We knew this was going to happen.
We said that even while things were going well.
Yeah. We're like, hey guys, it's gonna get so. I to pull a Dom there, like, hey guys, I know you're enjoying your hockey right now, but it's gonna get worse. So you're not gonna enjoy it later. That's essentially what we did. But it's true and it's part of the process. But I just don't see the adjustments in game from St. Louis that makes sense, or the game planning. Like, I'd like to know what he game plans. I get the feeling that St. Louis is like a vibes only coach. You know what I mean? Like a heart to heart vibes only coach. And if you have a coach on the other side that strategizes, it's gonna be hard to beat him.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of head coaches are vibes only. It's mostly the assistants that do the actual grunt work. But there was one very obvious adjustment that St. Louis made in this game, and it was an awful one. That 5-on-3 from the Bruins. And I'm not saying that the Bruins wouldn't have scored on the 5-on-3 if he had made a different decision. But man, if I could just take every NHL head coach and slam all of their heads together at the same time and say, listen, you gaming for an extra 2% advantage on faceoffs does not fucking matter.
Look at Kirby Dach's career. The guy can't win a goddamn faceoff if his life depended on it. And he has some of the best stats that the Habs have had in a lot. Like,
one of the few bright spots tonight was Jake Evans on the PK. He was astonishingly good on the PK. I know they scored one while he was on the ice, but frankly, it was pretty weak. It was a bounce around, whatever. That shit happens. But you watch his work after, like in the power plays that happened subsequently to that, where the Bruins could have taken a huge lead early on. He was immense, holding the blue line incredibly well, causing turnovers, clearing the puck. Like, he was just crazy good tonight. And I actually like that St. Louis did reward him a little bit in the third period with a bit more ice time. It ended the game with the fourth line. I thought Jake Evans was one of the few guys. His give a shit meter was at 100% tonight.
And we saw that last year from Jake Evans too, when things were going really bad. It was actually right before his injury, unfortunately, when the player landed on him. But for about 5 games, Evans took things in charge, and he was the guy leading it. Like, he was the guy that was dragging the ghost of Dadonov beside him. So it's always good to see that. And you know, Jake Evans has to. He has no choice, because I'm sure he's looking in his rear view mirror a little bit right now. And like, again, I like what he brings to the ice, but he's also a perfectly replaceable player. So he has to play well. So that, yeah, you're right. Great sign.
Yeah. So at least there's that. Obviously, Slavkovsky, the line was terrible. And
but it was maybe his best game this year, Andrew.
Like, well, I don't know. I think the Vancouver game was his best. But
the giveaway, I will say this, that he has to be a little more aware. For example, that giveaway on the power play, I believe, or maybe it was at the end of the power play. Either way, sent it behind him, didn't look. And then when the player was coming up, he actually abandoned his defensive coverage. Now, if I'm Justin Barron and I see Slavkovsky there, I'm not sure if I actually like assume that he's gonna recognize that I'm pinching, but it was a comedy of errors everywhere. But that was his one bad play, and overall, I think it was probably statistically his best game of the season.
I mean, I would still go with the Vancouver game, where he had 7 really strong scoring chances, but
his defensive impact was better this tonight, even with that play.
He's had some great defensive games too, frankly. He looked really good the whole time with that Dvorak-Caulfield line. Like, I really liked how that line played at 5-on-5.
Speaking of which, Dvorak's been pretty darn good, right? Like, that's another actually fun thing for the Canadiens. Everyone was assuming he was going to come in and just be an extra. I think you maybe keep him around right now, just for a little bit, just to kind of hold the center line down a little bit while you try to figure out who else wants a guy like Anderson on the trade market, which I know everyone's making their comments on it, but a GM will still trade for Josh Anderson. It just won't be a good return, but they will trade for him, guaranteed.
It just has to be a team in win now mode that wants a guy who can score on the breakaway once in a while. He has to maybe score a little bit, but frankly, I mean, Josh Anderson, I don't know why anybody, including Canadiens management, was so sold on this idea of him being a guy that you keep around for the rebuild. Like, listen, he's 29 years old. He's made incremental improvements in his game, but he's still a drag at 5-on-5. He's not a power play player. He doesn't kill penalties. What's the point?
Great hair, though.
Handsome dude.
I will say this is what I was kind of mentioning at one point. I got a lot of pushback on this, but I think for all the modernization that Hughes and Gordon have done, they're still pretty old school in their approach. I'd actually say that Gordon is less old school than Hughes, but they like their big boys that skate hard and that, you know, make a huge impact. That's like, in their mind, they're still going for the couple cups that the LA Kings won. So it doesn't surprise me, Andrew. They're pretty darn old school in their approach to building a roster. It's got to be big guys. And then they say, as long as they're talented. Well, for now, they're going with the big before talented. And I think that's a little bit of an issue. But this management group likes their big boys. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where I don't know if you can find a front office in the NHL that doesn't love their big boys.
No, absolutely. I was just
that's a tough one, right?
And even me, like, you know, if I go through some of my favorite players, you got Eric Lindros, Mario Lemieux, you know, like the Vincent Le Cavalier. But the reason why they're so exciting and so fun is because it's really rare for anyone being like 6'4" and over to be good in the NHL, especially a forward. So tall. I know Anderson isn't at that point yet, but I like big strong dudes too, man. But talent first.
Yeah, it has to be talent first. One thing that I didn't like about Slavkovsky tonight was there was a moment in, I think it was the first period. And, you know, like we mentioned, I don't think the Bruins played very well. I thought they controlled the puck really well. They're clearly the better team. Their shot selection was pretty bad. There was a lot of like firing from the point, looking for tips along the ice. And like, if the Canadiens played like that, we'd all be like, what the fuck is this bullshit? So I don't think they necessarily played that well. But one thing the Bruins always have is killer instinct and understanding the moment. And there was a play in the first period where I don't remember which Bruin it was. I think it was like number 13. Is that Charlie Coyle? He was at the Canadiens' blue line. And because of Slavkovsky's positioning as he was coming across the blue line, there was another defenseman, I think, up high. He had nowhere to go to cut inside the zone. So he had two options, which was basically to go out of the zone or to skate towards Slavkovsky. And he hesitated on skating towards Slavkovsky. And Slav went for a poke check and forced him offside, which, you know, listen, good play. However, this is Habs versus Bruins, and you're 6'3", 235 pounds. Destroy him. Destroy him. You've got him in a situation where he has no out. All he can do is step out, angle him, and just level him through the chest. Do it, please, because this game needed that moment. And I firmly believe if he had done that, the team might have woken up a little bit.
Well, when Gustav Lindstrom is your heavy hitter versus the Bruins, I think it shows a little bit of a lack of intensity. No, I agree with you. And especially in the sense that it's not just that Slavkovsky hesitates, he just shies away from a lot of that. Let's be perfectly honest. But that's never been his game. So
I wonder if I don't know if it's shying away. Like there's a hesitance to it for sure. But I wonder if it's like he doesn't want to get caught going for a big hit and losing his man. Like he seems like he's much more focused on being defensively aware. And I get it. But man, when he remembers that he's big, he is wildly entertaining.
Well, it's kind of like at one point last year. Remember when it was the Flyers guy who decided Detroit tried to fight Kirby Dach, and you're like, oh shit, Kirby Dach just remembered that he has, and this was one of my favorite tweets. He has like Clifford the dog size advantage on his opponents, and it's the same thing with Slavkovsky. He's got to channel his inner Clifford the dog. You're huge. You're a huge man, you know? So a little more physical play will work. But I agree with you, Andrew. He's tentative because when he was making those plays at the start of the year, they didn't go well. And it's not necessarily his fault. It was more luck of the draw. But now I think you're seeing a guy who's just a little more hesitant to make mistakes. And that's where the overthinking comes, right?
Yeah.
But again, I like, for whatever reason, he's still in the NHL, and I still think he should be not in the NHL. It's not up to Juraj Slavkovsky to lead this team. And when he's the best forward, it speaks to a much bigger issue. And I think we'll have to admit too that Cole Caulfield went from like creating chances and being unlucky to the tonight. I'd say was probably the first time where I was like, okay, he's not having a great game in terms of shot selection, in terms of finding open ice. So yeah, you want to see more from the guy from like Cole Caulfield. And I know it might not be fair, but he's got to score a lot more goals. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah, I'm willing to be patient with Caulfield just because the underlying play is there. But yeah, and Slavkovsky too. I mean, frankly, that Monahan line, when it was Monahan, Slavkovsky, and Ylönen, was one shot attempt for 16 against.
Yeah, it just got murdered.
They split them up, and the rest of the game, Slavkovsky went 8 shot attempts for 8 against in
Yeah,
a game
no,
where the
absolutely.
Canadiens were getting killed. So big rebound from him. I liked the response from him. You know, of those 8 shot attempts that he got without Monahan, 2 of them ended up being goals. So there's that. 2 points on the night. Good game overall for Uri Slavkovsky. I would
Yeah.
say very few players we can say that about.
But
Jake
that means it's a
Evans.
perfect tank game, right? No points, no risk of points.
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
thing. I'm glad in games like this, same as the game against Vegas, that they didn't get a point because they didn't deserve it.
no,
Like
no.
Vegas, everything they were touching was going in. That could have been a game where they score like 7 or 8 and end up winning somehow. It's good that they didn't. And it's good again tonight. Frankly, they need to be slapped down a little bit and realize they've got to go back to formula, to quote the Green Goblin from
to, quote,
Spider-Man.
to quote the famous 19th century poet, the Green Goblin.
Norman Osborn.
I would say, and I'd like to get your opinion on it, but I would say don't break up that Caulfield, Suzuki, Newhook line, even though
Yeah, let him
maybe
cook.
it wasn't their best game, but they looked like Suzuki looked much better. Caulfield probably not, but overall they had a better game than what we've seen the last few there
Yeah.
as a top line. And like, here's what's happening: the Canadiens' second line obviously has been collapsed for a while. That was the whole Anderson issue. The third line, look, I was giving them a lot of praise to start the season. The old men have slowed down a lot. Let's be perfectly honest. So you really need that top line to drive the offense right now. And I know it might be frustrating after a game like this, but I would keep them together going forward. And Newhook has to be a winger no matter what.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. I like the way Dvorak is playing, so I don't really want to punish him.
You're right. You're right. He is playing really well. Like it's even tonight he outplayed Monahan, which is rare, right?
Yeah, and something's going on with Monahan. I don't know if he's nursing a minor injury or something, but he didn't look quick tonight. The decision making wasn't there. Maybe he's just had a bad night. You know, a lot of guys did have a bad night tonight. But I would like to see, like, Monahan looked a lot better once they put Gallagher back on that line. So maybe it's as simple as that, as keeping Monahan and Gallagher together.
Oh, speaking of Gallagher, listen, again, another guy I've praised a lot this year. I don't know what's gotten into his head the last week, but okay, when he tried to that controlled entry, it was 1 versus 4. But hey, you know me, good job. You try to control entry. He lost it. The thing is, instead of getting on his horse and getting back he stayed there and he started whining to the refs while the Bruins went the other way and scored. That's unacceptable for any veteran. Like, listen, that right there, actually, like, saying we should bring him in the room and be like, tell me what happened here. You know, almost give him the Michel Therrien treatment of like, what the hell, buddy? You know, but not with a rookie. You're doing it with your veteran that knows a lot better. And Gallagher was on such a good streak to start the year, but I feel like the dumb penalties and the questionable whining to the refs has really, really mitigated his value for the Canadiens in the last little while.
Yeah, I'm not as upset about that one because the officiating tonight again was fucking terrible. It was so bad.
Common theme, right? Like, we should have
It
a
is.
bingo. You know what we should do? Because I still haven't put anything up. I should put a bingo thing up with like bad reffing, dumb Gallagher penalty.
It's just going to be on every single night. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
it'll
been
be
a
the
couple
free
games where
square, I
it's been
think.
okay. But like, and I don't think they would have won or been in the game anyway. So I'm not saying that the Canadiens lost this game because of the officiating.
No.
But there were 3 goals from the Bruins that were directly caused by poor officiating, either a bad call or complete non-calls on penalties that should be called in any game whatsoever. Like Slavkovsky's penalty where he got caught with a hold, right? Obviously,
I didn't actually see that. Yeah, I was writing.
But he used his free hand. He kind of pulled his back on his arm.
And they're being really, really, really ardent on calling those this season. At least they're trying. But they get fooled a lot.
Except for earlier in the shift, Slavkovsky had the exact same play happen to him off the face-off, and they didn't call it. And Craig Simpson was going off on the broadcast on Sportsnet. Oh, you know, Slavkovsky needs to keep his feet moving. Watch the replay. He did. All that happened was Slavkovsky tried to skate forward. The puck goes to the D, goes to the other D, and Slav tried to move to the middle. So as he moved to the middle, he changes his skate direction. Right now he's trying to skate through the player. He slows down because he's being held, and the refs just let that go. And then earlier in the first period, the Bruins score a goal on the rush where Alex Newhook has gotten a guy takes his head and literally throws him down to the ice by his head. I'm like,
the Shea Weber special, but on the ground.
Yeah,
there?
like,
Yeah.
This is the kind of shit where I'm like, where's the line? And I assume that the players don't know.
No,
And
absolutely not.
that's not a recipe for success. And again, I'm not saying this because the Canadians lost. I'm saying like game to game, whether it's the Canadians or the opposing team, the officiating is consistently terrible. There is no standard
Well, there you go. You found
whatsoever
it.
in
You
this
just found
league.
it.
The
It's
league
the
needs to
only
get their
thing
shit together.
consistent with refereeing is that it's inconsistent.
It's
Welcome to the NHL.
it's awful. It's the best sport and the worst league.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I will say this. I actually don't mind a guy like Slavkovsky who's in the zone really trying that, though, even though he got penalized. I'd rather see a guy engaged than just a lifeless effort, which is probably how you'd qualify most of the guys tonight. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
that's
yeah,
true, and that's
I'm not
why I'm
worried about
not.
that.
I don't really criticize him for taking that penalty because he got caught flat-footed. He tried to get back in it.
That's
It was a
fine.
light hold, but it was definitely a hold. I don't mind it being
That's
called
fine. He
either.
was in the play. I could name like 12 guys that I'm not sure they played tonight, you know? So yeah, that was like
Yeah.
earlier I watched Reinbacher play and I thought, man, this is the most boring game or the least effort I'm going to see from a team, the worst prepared team I'm going to see in a long time. And the Habs passed it immediately, like 2 hours later.
It's real bad. It's real bad. All right, let's talk about David Reinbacher in a minute here. But first, make sure that you like the stream if you're here. Make sure you subscribe to SDPN. We are inching closer to 100,000 subscribers, and things change drastically. When you hit 100,000 YouTube subscribers, you get more access to YouTube's
Otters?
back.
Oh,
Yeah, I
mind.
mean, you get well. First of all, you get a little plaque to commemorate it, but
But there's
also,
no visit with otters, right? Can Steve hook up like with the Toronto Zoo?
I mean, Steve should be able to do that anyway. But you get more like back and forth with YouTube HQ, so you have like more opportunity to do cooler things. And hey,
Mhm.
the more cool things we can do, the better it is for our network. So if you're not
Absolutely.
subscribed, you should really subscribe. And if you don't like the stream, well, get out. No, I'm just kidding. You can stay. But please like the stream. It helps us. It really does. It
Yeah,
helps
it
the
genuinely
YouTube
does.
algorithm the next day on replays. It helps more people find us. So please like the stream. We love you all that show up on these live shows. All right. So David
Oh,
Reinbacher,
Andrew, hold on
Mark,
one second.
what's that?
Hi, Claire. All
Hi,
right, go ahead.
Claire.
Sorry.
So David Reinbacher, obviously, Mark, you watch a lot of the games for,
Mhm.
for Reinbacher. I know he's coming back from injury. It's been a bit of a rough comeback, but his team is an absolute mess.
Oh my God.
Can you walk us through what's going on over there?
Well, just to give you an idea, Nathan Beaulieu signed with Cloton earlier this week, and tonight he was the highest used defenseman in terms of power play, in terms of ice time. He actually took up most of the power play time, and Reinbacher got relegated away from it. Reinbacher got like a little bit of second unit power play time, no
So
PK.
what you're telling me is that Nathan Beaulieu has officially been passed the torch, where
Yeah,
when he was breaking into the NHL, it was Douglas Murray
Douglas
sitting there
Murray,
wasting
exactly.
his ice time,
Yeah,
whereas now Beaulieu is on stealing Reinbacher's ice time.
that's exactly it. And
Great.
that's so Habs, to have
So
like
Habs.
Nate the Great come out of nowhere. But actually, for a while, I was
Jared
thinking,
Tenorti injuring Kirby Doc.
right?
It's like the
Next
revenge
year.
of Bergevin draft picks this year. What the fuck
Oh
is
my
this
God, Dominic
garbage?
Cham winning the game against the Habs. Like, come
Oh!
on, man. Pretty soon we're gonna have Greg Patterin that's injuring Lane Hudson. But so they're not just a mess, they're one of the worst teams I've ever seen in a long time. And the crazy part is, I just learned this. So the Habs didn't want to send Juraj Slavkovsky to Asat, who plays in Finland, right? They didn't trust the coaching. They did trust the coaching in Cloton, who was a guy who studied under a former Canadiens coach called Michel Therrien.
Mm-hmm.
So Fleming was a Michel Therrien student, and that's a little bit terrifying. He got fired today. So immediately, and I'll say this, Habs fans have the weirdest reaction to Reinbacher. Like it was a really bad game. But I put it up and people are like, how dare you rip him apart? And then other people are like, how dare you put this, like I showed a breakout and they're like, how dare you put this breakout? That's like showing a face off about Kotkaniemi. Guys,
But your
relax.
point was that he's coming back from an injury. That's what I
Well,
read it as.
well, exactly. No. And it was like very, and the best part is that I had two guys from, well, not best part, but from Switzerland, and also Thibaut Châtel, who does all the tracking, and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing. So Reinbacher's having a hard time getting settled in after the injury. But like, I'll say this, Andrew, and this is beyond, actually, it hasn't really changed since the draft, but it's beyond just the game today. I'm still not seeing that elite talent that everyone else does. Like I see like flashes of it, but I'm not seeing it consistently. However, being used in a situation where your coach is about as organized as someone that's taking care of glass after a bull runs in a china shop, it's he's lost, he's confused, and right now what I'm saying is that Reinbacher just got to be back in North America. He'll be back in North America the minute Cloten's season's finished. Also, Cloten actually might get relegated, believe it or not, right? So it's just a bad situation for the ice time. Like the NL is better than we thought it was, but the team is worse, if that makes any sense. So good competition, but the ice time's dropping. We'll see how the new coach impacts him, but I'm seeing a very tentative David Reinbacher right now. Now, here's the other part, Andrew. He's 19 years old, right? Like he turned 19 last week, but I'm yet to see why the Habs were captivated by him. I honestly don't know yet. And the footage last year was encouraging, but for what I'm seeing, like I'm watching it very closely. It was his 5th game I've watched. I don't see that elite talent. I honestly don't see it. And I hope
probably like the worst.
I'm going to open it up. I might be wrong, Andrew. I might be very wrong, but for now, it's not there.
Yeah, it's probably like the worst way, like the worst time to evaluate him, right?
Oh, right after the injury, so early in the season. Injury, right? So he's going to be slow.
And like that tentativeness with the knee makes total sense because you don't like everyone is a little bit scared to blow it out again, right? Or make it worse, right? Yeah. Probably coming back as a 19-year-old earlier than maybe he should, because a lot of 19-year-olds will do that. So it is tough. And we won't get to see him at the World Juniors because Austria didn't make it, so that kind of sucks as well. It's kind of a tough hit on a lot of fronts for the Canadiens so far this season.
Yeah. Well, the injury just essentially stalled everything, right? That's like he actually played the first 3 games I saw him, and he was actually pretty darn good. And when he was on the ice, Cloten no longer looked like a bunch of drunken penguins, right? Like when he was on the ice, they would compete with like SC, like with Zurich. But tonight they were going against Langnau, and anyways, one of the worst teams in the league, and they got embarrassed almost as much as the Habs got embarrassed by the Bruins. It was just like Max Kellenberger is the guy that plays with David Reinbacher, and I'd say that he'd have a hard time cracking an ECHL roster right now.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah,
that is very rough. Man, hopefully that team turns it around a little bit, because it's one thing to have a bad start and start with an injury, but when you're basically going to be the defenseman version of Patrick Waugh and the Granby Bisons, that season gets long, and as we've noticed the last 2 years here.
I'll tell you this, he's not at the point where, and it's super normal because again, it's his age, but he's not at the point where he can quickly make up for mistakes. It seems to kind of fester with him. We saw he was actually much better in the 3rd period. Like first period, rough. 2nd period, pretty good. 3rd period, all of a sudden, Cloten took like 20 shots. They started to look good, but the score was 4-1, right? So there's some score effects there. But the last play of the game, and I had essentially reserved myself to saying, like, it wasn't the worst game from Reinbacher. He was okay. Goes to grab a puck in the corner, makes 3 unnecessary cutbacks, falls. The guy grabs the puck, scores in an empty net. It was one of those like, oh no, it looked so much worse than it really was. But you could see him on the bench after that. He was just 1,000-mile stare, like staring straight through the boards. So
yeah,
hopefully, and again, it's so early, but it's not going as well as the Habs would have thought. And I think that's a little bit on them for trusting a guy that was taught by Michel Therrien, who, yes, Claire, he did get fired today. So it was just funny that they didn't trust Assad with Slavkovsky, but they trusted Michel Terrien's student with David Reinbacher.
Did the Canadiens set this coaching hire up? Or is it just they were okay with it?
I can't. Okay, Andrew, you know what? I thought about that, and I've asked before. They will push. Like, for example, last year there were some calls to Kitchener to be like, "Hey, what's going on with?"
Oh yeah, no shit. There's no way there wasn't. Kitchener was an absolute gong show last year.
Absolutely, and we have to remember, Cloten is actually like a pretty small team, even in the Swiss league. But there's a difference between playing 25 minutes a night in Switzerland compared to playing, now he's down to like 18 minutes on one of the worst teams in Switzerland. Like that change in the standings, the quality is huge. So yeah, he'll be in Laval the moment their season is over. Like I would be there, Kent Hughes, with like get on my horse, like literally just get off, just ride to the airport, get on a plane, get him to Laval. But there's still a lot of road to go. That's the thing. Like I think one of the things that happened when looking at Reinbacher, and this happens all the time, was that we looked at all his good plays after the draft. We're like, hey, there's some there, but there's also a heavy dose of learning that needs to be done in David Reinbacher's case. Like a very heavy dose.
Yes.
Very heavy.
The highlight pack.
Well, that's the other part, right? Like he was, and that's kind of what some people were accusing me of doing today. But that wasn't the case. I was just showing what's real. And right now, Reinbacher is not playing like a top 10 defense prospect for the Canadiens. That's the concern. But Andrew, I guarantee you, once he has more than like 30 minutes to rehab his knee there, or 30 minutes with the ice time. He'll find his rhythm. I'm sure he'll find his rhythm. Right now, it does not look good.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, if David Reinbacher ends up being as good as Caden Gooley
Oh,
is,
I
they'll be
don't think
fine. It's
I
not a
don't think
home
that
run, but they'll be fine.
like I see, and this is I haven't changed because I know Mitch Brown told us, but he knows a lot more than I do. David St. Louis, I still haven't changed my opinion since draft day. I think he's really good odds to be a top 4 guy. Okay odds to be a top pairing guy. And I know a lot of other people are like, no, he's a lock for the top pairing. I don't see it. I don't see the speed of execution. The breakouts are really good, but he was hesitant. The decision making, let's be perfectly honest, was awful. Like, I don't want to say it, but you know who he looked like tonight?
Say it.
Logan Mailloux.
Yeah, well, he scored tonight.
Well, there you go. That's a big difference. But I'm talking about Mailloux, like in London, where defensively he was just lost. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, really bad game, and it sucks that I was watching and highlighting it. But let's just put it this way: a new coach couldn't make things worse. So hopefully Nathan Beaulieu won't get in the way of his development, because again, that's the most Habs thing ever. And hopefully in the future, the Montreal Canadiens stop trusting guys who were taught by Michel Therrien how to coach.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a big change.
Simon asks right now, is there a way to bring him to the AHL? Not right now. Well, okay, yes. Actually, yes. The Habs tonight could call Cloten and say, okay, it's done, because they loaned him back. They won't. It'll be after the season's done. And if there's a play out, because Cloten, what happens is the bottom 2 teams of Tier 1, top 2 teams of Tier 2, they play a big face-off, and one of the teams gets to stay up. So I'm not even sure if he'd play in the play out right now. I think the Habs would probably be like, no, get him to Laval and get him away from that terrible situation.
Well, and frankly, Laval could use a defenseman right now, because
absolutely.
With Trudeau struggling to start the season, I think he's been better lately. And Norlinder and Mailloux have their own foibles. It's been kind of the Jaden Struble show down there. They could use some depth.
By far, like if I call up someone right now, it would be Jaden Struble.
100%, 100%. All right, let's have a little bit of positivity before we get to some viewer questions. I know there's a lot of people in the chat right now who want to talk. Kay says she's feeling awful in this chill stream tonight. Yeah, let's get some positives. Did you see Florian Xhekaj go end to end tonight?
Love it. And it's funny because I follow his mom, and she's the one that kind of she's always, it's funny too, because the same thing as Mama Suzuki does. Mama Suzuki talks about the younger son a lot more than the older son. That's just how moms go, right? And end to end, I'll be honest, Andrew, when they drafted him, I was like, oh my God, here we go again. But I almost fell for it. I didn't say anything, but I almost fell for it. But the Xhekajs just, I don't know what it is, man. They're like the last Normans. They're Gauls that are fighting the Romans. They're just so rare and so strong. We're seeing him, he's got to finesse a little bit more. But man, in terms of production, he's the second most productive Have prospect right now, behind Cédric Guindon. Oh, so, and actually Philippe Méchard would be
Philippe
in there
Méchard.
Too. Yeah.
I mean, Méchard, no points tonight, but Méchard coming in tonight was 2 points a game.
Yeah, exactly. So once he has a couple more games, he'll pass them. But just in terms of raw production, Florian Xhekaj, I'm pretty sure he's right up there with the top 3. So
they're at 18 points for Méchard, 17 for Xhekaj. But the fact,
17 for Xhekaj is more impressive than 18 for Méchard. I'm gonna say,
considering last year, I think this is what it consistently impresses me, and why when the Canadiens took Florian at the draft last year, I was like, this seems like a huge reach. But then again, look at the development curve for Arbor, right? And I'm like, if they're counting on that happening again, it seems like a stretch. But now I'm watching him, and he's doing the same thing.
That's why I shut up. That's why I shut up this time. I'm like, nope, not again. I'm not gonna get fooled. But here's the thing: I don't think he was ranked by anyone.
Just don't doubt the Xhekajs.
Never doubt the Xhekajs. And I think there's actually a third brother who just doesn't play hockey. Like, I assume he works at a mine and he crushes boulders with his hands there, just because they're freakishly strong, that family.
In his head.
Yeah.
He's cracking granite slabs. They just come out perfectly flat.
We're going to bring up, I think we're going to ask Mama Xhekaj to join us on one of these shows and see if she wants to tell us what she was feeding them there when growing up. But it's not just lucky plays either. Like, Xhekaj doesn't have the finesse, Florian, but he's driving the net, man. And he's really doing a great job. Getting under everyone's skin at the beginning of the year, he was doing that, but he was also getting penalized. Now he's doing it without getting penalized, and that's the sweet spot for Florian Xhekaj, because he'll lose some of his value if he continuously takes penalties, but now he's drawing penalties. So Yeah, man. Like him, it's funny because again, the top end of that draft, I'm not too sure about it, and I still don't like the Newhook trade, but Jacob Fowler
Yep.
has looked amazing. By the way, he's like by far he's the prospect that Habs been waiting for in Nets, and Florian Jacki have probably been the best two surprises of that draft so far.
Yeah. I mean, if if Joshua Waugh wasn't doing what he was doing in the American Hockey League and Lane Hudson wasn't, Lane Hudson, Jacob Fowler would probably be the most impressive Habs prospect this season.
And it's crazy because I have one criticism, Andrew, is that he sits back deep. Now that's literally, and I've been looking for it. Like I've been looking for a nit to pick since I've been watching Fowler because I'm like, what? I'm missing something here. Okay, the one thing is that he's not the fastest guy in the air on earth, so he picks up a big place in the net, and he goes down early, which means he's a little deep in his net, but that's so easy to fix. Other than that, his tracking is perfect, his positioning is perfect, doesn't waste an ounce of energy. And last night was actually a rough game for him. Probably the first time I think all season he had a sub 900 save percentage, but he's one of the main reasons Boston College is ranked above Boston University right now.
Wow. Even with Celebrini.
Even with Celebrini, I'll say this, it's so weird, Andrew. Like, okay, the goalie, I think not great for Boston University, but Boston University, hot mess right now. Like they're riding on pure talent. Hudson Celebrini, and then like Hudson's playing 26 minutes a game. You know what I mean? So he got caught in a few empty netters, and that hurt his plus minus, and people are freaking out about that. But Boston University as a whole, not great right now. The chemistry.
Well, hopefully they can pick it up. Gotta have some Hudson Celebrini magic come into the Habs at some point here.
Oh my God, Andrew, it would be so because Celebrini is not just 17 years old. Do you know when his birthday is?
No.
July.
Okay, so he's a young kid.
He's a young 17. That's the
in the NCAA.
In the NCAA, right? So he's going to score 18 goals before he's 18 years old, which is almost unheard of. At this pace, I mentioned it yesterday, he might score 18 goals by Christmas. You know what I mean? So like Logan Cooley, I think had 22 goals last year, and everyone was freaking out. Macklin Celebrini, I'm going to say it. I think he has more rocked on. I was going to talk about Betano, but that's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't put him up there. I would say
up in 5 years.
Compare him directly to Adam Fantilli. Adam Fantilli is a couple months older at the same stage.
I'd say Celebrini's skill levels mountains over Fantilli, right? I'd say like his skill level is where Leo Carlson's is in terms of his vision. It's Bedard in terms of his shot. And then you have Fantilli in terms of his positioning. Like you have to watch him. He really reminds me of almost a prime Kovalchuk, yeah. So
I'll take that.
Oh God, yeah. He and him and Hudson have just the ultimate chemistry. Now he takes more shots than Danny Heatley playing for the Minnesota Wild, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And the other thing is we saw at the beginning of the year he was forcing things, right? But again, just turned 17. He actually cleaned that up real well. So throughout all these losses, the Habs could put their hands on Macklin Celebrini, or Ivan Demidov, or like there's Cole Eiserman. There's a lot of talent coming up in this draft, and we're just not going to talk about defensemen.
Yeah. Francois Duchesne says, I feel you guys are going a bit deep on superlatives, like saying Reinbacher couldn't crack the ECHL.
No, I never said that.
Mark was talking about the partner that Reinbacher's playing with,
yeah.
Not Reinbacher himself. Celebrini Mountains over Fantilli. I mean, Mountains is a big thing, but
statistically speaking, he absolutely is, though. Like, it's not even close.
I mean, Fantilli was almost a goal a game last year in the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 2 points. Celebrini is ahead, and he's younger. I wouldn't say mountains, but I'm not going to quibble with Mark's description.
He's a whole year older, and anyways, at that age, he was playing in the UCHL, whereas Celebrini's in the NCAA. So let's just put it that way.
No, Fantilli played at U of Michigan last year in the Big Ten.
Yeah, but at 17, he was playing in the USHL.
Oh, right. He did turn 18 right before the season. You're right.
So he's a whole year older, and he's outproducing him. That's mountains better than
that. You know what?
I like Adam Fantilli. I really like him. I think it was a mistake to let him drop. Although Carlson's been better than I expected, but just in terms of raw talent, absolutely. Yeah. The motor's not as good as Fantilli, though. I'll say that. Like he still hasn't the decision making, but yeah, man. In terms of raw skill, watch him play. Trust me, watch him play.
Now that we've gone through the details, I can't disagree with you, honestly, just based on production. All right, let's take some questions from the chat. Chat, if you want to throw some questions in there, have some fun times. Let's maybe not talk about the Habs. Let's talk about something else.
I will say this, hey, man, what about the Chicago Steel as a USHL team producing talent? They're the same team where Sean Farrell went to. Fantilli went there. Man, like if you want your player to be good, you send him to the USHL and for the Chicago Steel. They're just so damn good, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they have a really strong program. Trzak, do not put that evil into the world. He says, Mark, this draft, you'll get Habs picking a two-way 3-4 defenseman, and you'll like it. Don't just don't do that. Jean Simard says, hey, Andrew, is there any chance of an Ice Level podcast reunion on a Game Over episode? I don't think so, because Connor works for TSN 690, and they also have a post-game show. I don't believe they would allow him to do that. And Robin has a young child, so I don't know if I'd want to make her stay up late. I don't even know if she does stay up late, so I don't know. I don't think so. It's probably not in the cards unless Connor decides to leave 690. So we'll see. Oh, this is okay. Evan asks Mark, Swiss Chalet or St. Hubert?
I literally today ordered some chalet, but it was chalet barbecue, the proper one off Sherbrooke. Okay. So when I first moved to Montreal, I was talking to a friend of the show, Jay Baruchel, and he's like, man, you got to go to chalet. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? You know, this like he knows stuff and he's saying it's good. I thought he was talking about Swiss Chalet, but no, it's chalet barbecue on Sherbrooke, which is amazing. Between Saint-Hubert and Swiss Chalet, I'll take Saint-Hubert because Swiss Chalet sauce tastes disgusting. Swiss Chalet is disgusting, but Côte Saint-Luc barbecue as well, very good. Those are the options. Côte Saint-Luc or Chalet. We never go Swiss Chalet or Saint-Hubert here. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't hate St. Hubert, but it is just a slightly better Swiss Chalet. They have a decent gravy though. Like their gravy's okay.
That's the key part right here. Like especially for me there, you know, it's got to be good gravy, and I feel like Swiss Chalet they add like I don't know, man, like cumin or something random to the sauce. It's just not good. It's not good at all. When I was in Ottawa, those were the two like that's the huge advantage Montreal has on any other cities. Chicken, really good chicken. Like we love our chicken here.
Ottawa Portuguese chicken is incredible here.
Oh, or yeah, exactly. Ottawa is Swiss Chalet or Saint-Hubert, and you always go to Saint-Hubert. Absolutely.
Yeah. Kay says, why do I suddenly feel like crying about this team? I want to see them succeed so bad.
Yeah, but
I feel rough about the offense. That's the rebuild, right? We all said before the season that this wasn't the time that they were going to make the playoffs. I think honestly, there's been a lot of talk about how like, oh, they have the fewest regulation wins in the league. They're not the worst team in the league. They're very clearly not the worst team in the league, but they're not good either. There's been huge improvements from several key players that have kept them afloat and in that like the top of the bottom third in terms of the underlying numbers. Specifically, yeah, they're dropping now, but they're in a really bad slump. Obviously, I think tonight they're in that slump, and St. Louis juggled the lines. And everyone was discombobulated at the beginning of the game.
Like they actually got worse. Eh?
Yeah, he thought they were going to be able to do what they did against Detroit, where he juggled the lines and they played quite well. But Boston's not Detroit.
But have you noticed that when he does that, he doesn't actually practice those lines beforehand? He'll run practice normally, and then right before a game, like fuck it, these are the new lines. You know what I mean?
I don't know how common that is for all coaches. It seems like it happens quite a bit, but
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know about that. Like, yeah, and again, but I've never been as high on St. Louis as anyone else. However, I will say this: I don't think anyone expected him to like push them towards the playoffs. It was more of a, in the meantime, get our guys going and recreate a sort of sense of community in the locker room and build up some confidence in some of these guys. Yeah. I really think that's what St. Louis was brought here to do, is to be a communicator, right?
Well, and I think, not having Xhekaj in a game like this also definitely hurts. He
made a huge difference, eh? Well, hey, man.
Big player last time, right?
Gustav Lindstrom was honestly, that was a great hit. I'll say
it was a great hit.
He did his crazy? Best. Andrew, I got to look at his stats before I say this, but okay, no, he's got the worst XGF on the team. Never mind. He actually is lower than Matheson, which is, you got Josh Anderson, Mike Matheson, Gustav Lindstrom, which I feel is unfair. I think he's actually looked pretty darn good with the Habs.
He's had a couple decent moments. I don't
better
think
than what he looks like in Nevada. Way better.
Which is interesting. But yeah, I don't think he's very good. Like, I'd be interested to see Struble. I don't think he's a guy that I want on my team long term. But either way, Jean Simard asks, there's a few people actually that asked about Sean Farrell, where he's having a pretty decent start to the season. Do we see him fitting at some point with the Canadiens, and where?
I mean, one of the main reasons I didn't a little worried about Farrell's because a lot like Riley Kidney, who by the way just scored his first goal in the AHL, which is great. I wasn't sure if his skill set would translate to the professional ranks, and
It's been a rough one for him overall.
yeah, and I think let's be honest, we all saw that coming. We all saw that coming.
Yep.
He was really like a Corey Locke in the sense that not just his skill set, but just like he was much better talent wise than his opposition. But I'm not sure he had the next gear. However, Farrell, his assists are translating very nicely. I believe I didn't check the score tonight, but he's 3 goals, 7 assists, doing a great job forming chemistry with Joshua Roy. So we're getting that, we talked about last show, we're getting that duo together. I would say that he needs to shoot a lot more, Andrew. He has like a 1 shot per game, which is, but hey man, you're a rookie professional. You know how they do, they always defer it. So Sean Farrell is building, as Kat mentions, a lot of confidence in the AHL right now. And that's absolutely fantastic. Same thing with Joshua Roy. And, you know, we knew there'd be some growing pains, but I feel like those two have adapted incredibly well. Like I'm a lot more impressed by what Farrell's doing than what Roy is doing, even though Roy is like, if he would have played all the games, if he would have played as many games as the first place guy, he'd have more points, right? He's second in scoring right now. So yeah, Roy's doing good, but Farrell is doing excellent versus expectations. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'd say what I see from Farrell is a high level executor. Yeah. Whether it's shooting or passing, he puts the puck where it needs to go. He makes good plays almost all the time. And you know what? Frankly, same with Wah. It's just that his plays are much more like defer to teammate, get to the right space, defer to teammate, get to the right space, score. Yeah. Whereas Farrell is hold on to the puck, find the best play. They're very different players, but they're both playing really
his
well.
Passing has been like, he's been sitting at I don't know if you saw the goal that he scored where he essentially just waited. Like he saw Wah like come from his own ice and he basically just held the puck long enough, then filtered it through three guys right on the stick, right? And so that's, it's easy to play with Joshua Roy, I will say that, but there's been so many guys that I'm worried that they're not going to produce in the AHL, and Farrell was one of them, even though he finished second behind Logan Cooley for points per game last year in the NCAA, but he was 21, right? So he's older, he should be better, and he is. So it's really good news on the Sean Farrell front.
Yeah, and I think for anybody who's like, oh, he's not a point per game, it's very rare to be a point per game in the American Hockey League. What Joshua Wah is doing is very, very rare.
As a rookie, too. Like, he might win the scoring record as a rookie. Or scoring title as a rookie,
That'd be really fun. Kay asks, I've been noticing that Kovacevic has been way more physical this year than last year. No? Yeah, 100%. Again, confidence makes a big difference.
Well, and we have Kat in the chat. There's a cat in the chat. The chat has a cat who's also a huge Kovacevic fans. Goals in back-to-back games, my boy Johnny. I will say this though, Andrew, not his best season overall. I
mean, he's being asked to do much more difficult jobs this year, right? And the struggles have been there at times. But I will say, you know what? He's been an absolute killer on the penalty kill this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the crazy part, when he was playing with Matheson, like it wasn't Kovacevic that was the issue. And when Kovacevic played with Gooley, those numbers look pretty good as well. So yeah, let's just say that sometimes found wallets can't exactly subsidize your trips to Vegas. Like sometimes it's better just not spend a lot, keep them where you should be. In this case, Kovacevic in that 4 to 6 spot is just ideal.
Yeah. All right. That's all that this game deserves for our time and investment. I hope everybody has a wonderful the rest of their weekend. Thanks for joining us here live on Game Over Montreal. We will see you again shortly. I believe the Canadiens play next Wednesday. On the road. Yeah. On Wednesday. Oh, that's a weird one.
Anaheim, 10
p.m. A late game versus the Ducks. Mark will be your host.
The late game?
Yeah, so you'll be seeing a lot of Marc Dumont late in the next little while here. Mark's got the next 3 games, then I've got 2, then Mark's got another 3 as my parents are visiting.
Though, and we'll make sure we get lots of people on, and we're going to try to get Simona Jekai on, and we'll also have the Suzuki parents are going to join us, so I just still have to iron it out. Right now, Rob's in Boston, obviously with the team, but they're going to join us as well. And then after that, we'll have Kat Toffoli that's going to join us. So we're going to have some fun guests coming up in December.
Sounds great, guys. We're going to have a lot of fun. Hopefully the Canadiens can do something for the dads on the next game. Like, I don't know if they're going to Anaheim or not, but do something for your dads, please. Andrew,
if they weren't, you charter a flight. You know what I mean? You charter a flight. Absolutely.
I mean, there's rules, though, about how much they can pay for, right? The stupid CBA.
Just like the NCAA, I think the fathers would actually have to pay out of their pocket.
They would
to go, but hey, You know, I'll tell you one thing. There are a few things that guys like less than disappointing their fathers. So we're hoping they're going to have a much better outing on Wednesday.
Please, please. I don't ask for wins. I just ask for effort level.
Right?
We all know what this team is, but don't give me another shit show like tonight and the Vegas game. That was embarrassing. Embarrassing. All right. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Bye, Claire.